Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Tech Check live stream. I'm Deirdre Bosa, and what a week it's been on Wall Street, but also Silicon Valley. If you look at the software trade this week, you see fear, but if you look at GitHub or Twitter, X, it's a party. Public markets are dumping software. Well, it feels like everyone, including me with zero technical experience, are shipping real apps. We are living through a chat GPT-like inflection moment for AI, and the catalyst is a new tool from Anthropic called Claude Cowork. Now, what used to require years of coding experience or thousands of dollars, it now starts with just a prompt and a clear idea of what you want to build. So I've been experimenting with this myself on a few different vibe coding platforms. I used Replit. This is a vibe coding app that is meant for people who have never touched coding before. I created what I'm calling Market Bling. This is a web-based dashboard that tracks the market cap of the top 10 public companies and notifies you when a company crosses a specific $1 trillion milestone. For example, you get confetti when Alphabet hits $4 trillion in market cap. You get rain clouds when Tesla drops below $2 trillion. Now, this is something that I have dreamed of creating for years, covering financial markets. I actually first thought about it. My first job was CNBC in Singapore. And I remember joking about having a hockey style red goal lamp in the newsroom every time a mega cap hit a new milestone. So now with Replit, I actually have the digital version published online, by the way, if you want to use it yourself. I was even able to add that sort of like hockey red lamp afterwards with just one line of prompts. So you can just iterate on top of what you have. Now, another app I built with Claude Cowork, it's a version of a coding AI for regular people that was just released and creating a lot of buzz. So with this, I built what I'm calling the erode-o-meter. It's a desktop analysis tool designed to automate a gut check that, I have often as a reporter. So it ingests raw earnings calls and transcripts, and then earnings call transcripts, and then it mathematically quantifies like how direct or how evasive an executive is being during the Q&A session. Then there was my Tech Check producer, Jasmine. She did her very own just as easily on Replit. She created a community forum for sewists, that is people that sew, to buy and sell patterns. And she was telling me that this is something the knitting community already has. Why doesn't the sewing community? So she just made it up on her own and published it too, by the way. So the fact that Jasmine and I can spin up our own apps in just minutes has obvious cross currents to the software trade, which has had a very ugly start to the year, which you've noticed certainly if you're watching stocks and Wall Street. So the question increasingly being asked is this: why pay software vendors at all when your own engineers and non-technical people, they can just spin it up themselves using an AI coding app like Replit or Claude Code? So Box CEO Aaron Levy told us on CNBC about an hour ago that, yeah, vibe coding can work for lightweight or edge use cases, but companies still want established platforms, the CRMs, the systems of record for core functions. Now, to discuss the other side of this, a CEO and founder who would score very low on the erode-o-meter, Amjad Masad of Replet. Amjad, you're going to stay true to that, right? No evasiveness.
Yes, 100%.
You're always a straight shooter. So let's get to your announcement, because it's more of what I was just talking about. And that is like bringing these regular vibe coding tools into non-technical people's hands. Like I have been trying, this vibe coding over the last year or so, but it feels like over the past week, there's been like a real moment. What has changed, and how are you going to build on this with this announcement?
So we're announcing that we're making it super easy to make mobile apps. So you can come to Replit with just an idea and build a mobile app and ship it to the App Store and monetize it, and have users go to the App Store and discover your app and install it and use it. So far, AI has impacted desktop software, web software. But mobile has been a little harder because mobile needs to target specific platform APIs, like say the location API on Apple or Google. And so it's been harder for vibe coders and people with no technical background to be able to build mobile apps. And there's also an arduous process to submit an app to the App Store, and we solved that. So now you go to Replit really with just an idea, describe it in natural languages. We take care of auth, we take care of monetization, we take care of database, we take care of everything. And with just a few clicks, you can submit it to the App Store. And typically in a day or two, they will come back to you and accept the application. This is a full circle moment for me, because I worked at Meta, about 15 years ago, and I was working on the Android apps, and I felt like it was so difficult to make apps, even as an engineer. And so we started working on this technology called React and React Native to make it easier to build mobile apps. But still, it hasn't really impacted AI. And so we're bringing that technology that we started 15 years ago at Meta now to everyone in the world to be able to build mobile apps.
So what you're saying is sort of what I created, what Jasmine, my producer, what lots of people are creating right now. It was basically like a web page, right? My market bling and my Vado meter, they sit as websites, but like the real vision for my market bling is like a notification on my phone, right? So you're saying that can actually be turned into an app that sits on my iPhone home screen.
That's right. Notifications is a proprietary Apple or Google API that hooks directly into your phone and sends you notification and the app running in the background. And that wasn't really possible. AI can generate the code, but how do you actually target the platform-specific APIs, and how do you, ship it to the App Store? All of this stuff was really difficult, and even professional software engineers struggled with it. So we're making it super easy so that anyone can do it. So I hope next time I'm here, you have a mobile app in the App Store, and Jasmine too.
I hope you download it. Well, but my understanding for so long, we talk about this comparison between, the Apple and the Google ecosystems. And Apple, we've long talked about it being a closed ecosystem. How are you actually able to let me put something on my iPhone? That just seems so counterintuitive to everything I know about the Apple system.
That's been a career obsession, really. Actually, our head of product, the inventor of React.js, Jordan Walk, we started working on this together back at Facebook, 10, 15 years ago, because we were frustrated how hard is it to build cross-platform applications. So we built this layer called React Native, which made it a lot easier to build cross-platform applications, but not the entire end-to-end process. And you still had to learn how to program. And so today with Replit, you can just with an idea, and we'll generate all the code. We'll make sure it's Apple specific and Google specific. We also partnered with this company called Expo, which helps us ship this app to the App Store.
So I was using sort of different platforms. Replit was one of them. I was using that new Claude co-working tool. One of the major differences I found was I created this like great tool, the Vado meter on Claude co-work, but I couldn't really figure out how to publish it. What Replit had was just like this very clear button to publish. And I know that's sort of been your strength, right? You really, really think of like the consumer first. Do you think that, all the other competitors in this space, there's vibe coding, not just at Anthropic, but at OpenAI, at Google, Cursor, there's so many of them. What do you think that they will be doing this next? Are they coming for your customer?
Well, I think it's just not just about publishing. Publishing is very important and a core piece of what we do. It's about creating secure applications with privacy in mind, with authentication, with state and database, and security. And this goes to what Aaron Levy is talking about. Most of the vibe coding tools out there, they just generate software, and they don't really care about how the software is run or written. With Replit, we care about the end-to-end process. And so we have, for example, a security scanner who just published a white paper on it, on how to take AI-generated code and make sure it is actually not leaking secrets and not creating problems down the line. And similarly with authentication or even monetization, like if you build an app, how do you monetize it? Say Claude or Cursor adds a publish button, which I'm sure they will. They still need to worry about all these different things. And that's been our obsession. We obsess over creators, over everyday creators. And the reason is, Deirdre, is, what Jasmine's experience was, hey, my community need this app, but I'm not a developer. Most developers are not into sewing. And so people have ideas in their heads that could be valuable business, that could be really impactful projects, could be social impact, whatever it is. But everyone has ideas. And until today, they couldn't really get it out into the world. And now that's the big inflection point. The models have gotten good enough, but a platform like Replit provides the end-to-end capability in order to ship the app.
Most developers are not sewing enthusiasts yet. We've got Jasmine, right? There could be a whole stream of them coming online. Let's get to this tension that I've been talking a lot about on CNBC, and that is sort of this bifurcation between public markets and what investors are doing with software company and what we're seeing among builders and developers and what Silicon Valley is excited about. Who's wrong here?
Look, I think it is, there's two sides of the coin. One is it is an opportunity, and two, it is a risk. The opportunity here is, for the first time, companies are no longer bottlenecked by tech talent. 5-10 years ago, if you go to a company and say, what is the biggest bottleneck to your growth? And they'll tell you is how many talented software engineers I can hire, how fast I can iterate on the app, and how many ideas I can get and how much feedback I can get from my users. And so for the first time, that is no longer bottlenecked by software engineers. Software engineers are important. They help you run the business and make sure it's scalable, secure, and all of that. But for the first time now, designers, product managers, companies like Zillow and Duolingo use Replit to iterate on apps very quickly. They want to build their next app, their second product, their third product. And to do that, they need a platform like Replit. They need to do vibe coding because they just don't have enough engineers to run that many bets. So companies that embrace it, I think, will come out ahead. We'll be able to generate more and more ideas and have more shots on goal. Companies that don't embrace it, I think, will probably die.
Well, look at a Salesforce. I mean, Mark Benioff has certainly embraced everything about AI. He wants to rename his company Agentforce, and yet the stock is almost like a proxy for an anti-AI trade. Let me ask it this way. Are we going to see some of these software companies, some of these public software companies still exist a year from now, 5 years from now, given where AI coding is going?
I don't think that much will change in a year, but I think on a 5-year timeline, I think we're certainly going to see changes in these software companies. A lot of small businesses,
Amjad, your
especially
evader meter is going up a little here. Changes. I mean, be specific. 5 years from now,
okay.
Is Salesforce, is Workday, are they going to be around?
Look, the companies that embrace agents and become platforms for agents and vibe coding apps like Replit can build on top of and automate will survive and thrive. Companies that will close down, they will not create an MCP server or have APIs for people to build on top of, then I think those will go away for sure.
5 years from now, are there more or less public software companies in the market?
Probably less. It's probably less. And the reason is a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. Because we're going to see decentralization of innovation. So previously, Silicon Valley, created all this wealth and centralized all this wealth because not many people knew how to make software. Making software required a very expensive computer science degree and a lot of talent. But for the first time, you don't need that. And so, speaking of CRMs, we see a lot of our customers build CRM internally or build a new CRM that they want to monetize that is more vertical specific. So, we have entrepreneurs on our platform that are building the best CRM for private equity, for example. And so we're going to see an explosion of new ideas and new entrepreneurs from all over the world building software companies that might not be public software companies, but they're going to create a lot of wealth for themselves and for their employees.
Who is Salesforce serving if everyone's building their own CRM?
I think bigger companies for sure. I think enterprises and bigger companies I mean, Salesforce is fantastic, especially for us. Now we're building a lot of automations on tools like Salesforce. So we need this system of record. Yeah.
And I know you've had people internally spin up own tools through vibe coding. Okay, let me ask you the flip side of this then, because I can hear myself talking about these apps that I'm creating to people and their eyes kind of rolling a little. Is there a risk that we are flooding the internet with bad software? Yes, I think my apps are the greatest thing ever, but someone else could see it as slop. I've certainly heard from them online.
I could imagine having this conversation 20 years ago, and we're saying, could we flood the internet with slop video and slop pictures when Facebook and YouTube came out? Instead, we saw a new type of media, a new type of art. I watch a lot of YouTube video essays and YouTube creators that are producing the kind of shows that television and cable news and all of that, as much as they're really good, and I respect a lot of them, did not produce. And so it is new avenue for creation. And I truly believe, like, the more centralized and big an industry is, there's more bubble, there's more kind of, it's a place where people kind of think the same. But once you decentralize thing and allow different communities to bloom, you're going to see new types of software. So for example, your software has certain aesthetic that you don't see in other software, and that's your aesthetic. And I'm sure a lot of people will like that aesthetic. I like the notification sound, for example, that you're making. And so it just like leads to a lot more creativity, and that's super exciting. And leads to a lot more entrepreneurship, because if you look actually at new firm creation in America has been going down for like a century. So America, was the land of opportunity. Anyone could create a business, but now it's all about big business. It's all about building a $1 trillion company. But instead, I think we're just going to see a lot of multi-million-dollar companies, a lot more wealth created and decentralized.
So you're saying sort of the quality stuff will rise to the top. The feedback has been something that I didn't anticipate, even just posting a few screenshots on X. I'm getting a lot of like recommendations that I didn't necessarily think of. And that's really cool to like almost crowdsource how to improve an app that I was able to create through vibe coding, which is what you're sort of talking about.
Yeah, you're also getting an experience of what these companies are getting, our customers that are able to generate apps really quickly, get feedback from the market quickly. That just makes the learning process a lot faster.
Right.
I saw on LinkedIn an executive at Verizon, and said the slide deck is dead. We use Replit to generate software. If you want to come to leadership with an idea for something, don't give me a slide deck. Give me a Replit demo. And imagine the kind of feedback loop and iteration that will create in the enterprise.
Here's a question from someone who's watching this, a really good one. I always ask this when I talk to an AI CEO at Wall Street. Asks, what do I tell my kids who want to go into software development?
Look, if they have a natural talent for it, they're really interested in math and computer science, there's still a path to go really deep into certain aspect of software engineering. For example, like we still need the really deep technical ML engineer, or the, low-level hardware engineers, the person that's writing the software for the chips. But if they're just mildly interested in it, and instead they're interested in building products, I would say just go ahead and build products. You don't really need a computer science degree to do that. So, the people who want to go deep, we would really need deep expertise, and that will continue to be the case in the future. But the everyday software engineer, I think that career track will probably go away.
But everyone has to start somewhere. And you hear about these stories of software engineers graduating from places like Stanford and not being able to find jobs, going to Chipotle.
Well, that's because for a long time, what we've told young people is that you need to take this huge debt and go get a computer science degree to guarantee yourself a job. And I think that will change. Maybe we'll go to a world where software becomes more like a trade school, where you go for 3 months or a year, learn a bit of vibe coding. And if you're interested in it, you can go a little deeper and understand the underlying things, but immediately get a job. We have vibe coders on staff that are entirely vibe coding. We have someone that's going to HR and saying, okay, what can we build to make our HR systems better? So we built an org chart software that's better than anything on the market. We built a sales configurator that's sitting on top of our CRM that's really better than anything else we found on the market. And every company will hire these kind of vibe coders. So for every software engineer job that potentially goes away, you're going to find a lot of new kind of creative ways that AI is going to create jobs.
So do you think that white collar workers, they fully grasp how this leverage is changing? Like if they can use this, as you say, if they can vibe code, do they have a better chance of keeping their jobs, or do they code themselves out of a job?
Look, I think we're in the era of entrepreneurship. Like I think the world in which our parents, our grandparents grew up in, where, you do these certain set of things and you go to school, graduate with a good degree, get a job, and just do your 9 to 5, and you're going to be set for life. You're going to be able to buy a house and a car and everything. Sadly, that's gone. I mean, that was a great world, but that's gone. I think what we have today is an era that really benefits the entrepreneur. Those are people who have the hustle, who have the creativity. They're going to be able to create a lot more businesses in the world, but they're also going to be able to transform businesses. Like we hear from our customers that, like, a product manager, a sales operation person, a marketer have driven millions of dollars of either efficiency, cost saving, or revenue for the company because they had an idea and they wanted to go and build it. And so I think white collar workers, if they embrace that this is the era of entrepreneurship and they change their mindset about their work is no longer about doing a set of tasks. The work is about being creative and worrying about really the bottom line of the business, then they're going to have a job and they're going to thrive in their job, actually.
I mean, that is the optimistic view, which you hear from a lot of the folks in Silicon Valley. They don't want to say that AI is going to make jobs go away. But the reality is, like, especially right now, AI is making companies a lot more efficient. And we have seen hiring, especially among the mega cap tech companies, stall out. So is there going to be this period where you are going to see less hiring because of that? And, is AI everyone can vibe code, but not everyone will make an app that is going to be useful to the organization. Someone make a really effective app that actually gives them reason to cut a bunch of jobs.
Look, maybe my view is colored by the fact that our users are seeing those trends and changes that we're seeing. There's a media company on Replit, we published a case study about it, that they started using Replit internally, and they got rid of a lot of software. They were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for them, and it wasn't working. And then the savings that they got from that allowed them to hire more younger kind of Gen Z types that know how to use AI very well and can build new products and services for them. So in my vantage point is that I'm seeing a lot more job creation, a lot more entrepreneurship, a lot more new firm creation. But maybe that's colored by the fact that the kind of people that are using Replit are those cutting edge early adopters. But I recommend everyone to jump in and try it and see what they can build for themselves. But that being said, look, I'm not dodging the question. The big companies will hire less. We're already seeing that. Software engineering as a track where you could be, standard software engineer with a computer science degree and become a multimillionaire in a few years. Happened in Silicon Valley in 2015, right? You only needed, a few years tenure at Google. You become a manager. That's gone. Right. I mean, I'm saying it like it is. It is gone, and it is incumbent on the new generation to figure out how to navigate this. And the way to navigate, I think, is becoming more entrepreneurial, whether it is within an enterprise or to create new businesses.
Right. And it's nuanced, as you say. Let's get to another topic. I don't know if you read this piece, but Holden Spat, he's a managing partner at Tomo Bravo. He wrote a piece in the Financial Times and he called it the risky bet by AI startups. His argument is basically that most AI startups, especially the ones building tools on top of models like Claude or ChatGPT, are structurally weak. He argues that they burn cash, they lack defensible moats, and eventually they lose to big integrated software platforms that already own systems of records and so on. So here's the question, I guess, is vibe coding actually a gift to the incumbents, the very, companies that you're competing against, making software easier to build, easier to copy, and ultimately easier to absorb, or is this time genuinely different?
We spent 10 years building the Replit platform. We're not a year-old vibe coding software company. We built a lot of really hard infrastructure components, such as we have this scalable file system component that allows the agent. So, for example, if you install CoWork on your machine, it might delete some files and it would be very hard for you, if not impossible, to recover them. It's a great, wonderful tool. But Replit, we're trying to build sandboxes that allows for mistakes to happen, but the mistakes not to be costly, right? So you can, with one click, reverse the entire environment. It's almost like time travel. You can time travel your file system, your database, your user state, and everything with one click. That file system took us 4 years to build. Those infrastructure components are still hard to build and hard to harden. And the security aspect of it is incredibly difficult. Like the compliance and the security scanners that we built on top of Replit, those take many years to build. And with regards to the structural argument there, well, I think the labs are also, you can make an argument on the flip side, because OpenAI can only use OpenAI models. Gemini, Google can only use, Google models, whereas we use all of them. So Claude Opus is obviously the best model right now, and it's a really great model. But we do use Gemini for code-based search. I was here last time talking about Gemini. We use OpenAI for code reviews, and so there's a structural advantage for app layer companies in the choice of models that we have. And the reality is different models excel at different things.
Right. But okay, these companies, the model builders, they also have raised a ton more money. And in many cases, they're actually building the infrastructure. When I was using, whether it be Claude Code or the Replit platform, I was thinking, like, how many tokens am I burning through? This just seems like an enormous amount of compute. You haven't needed to raise the kind of money that Anthropic or OpenAI have had to, but how is that impacting your margins as more and more people get on this very complicated, like agentic idea of vibe coding? And I guess that's the idea too, that I thought he was getting at in that piece is like, are you burning cash?
History is very illustrative here. We talked about the YouTube analogy, but think about during the dot-com era and all the money that went into infrastructure, that helped build the modern internet, laying down the fiber optics. Cisco is one of the most valuable companies in the world. And then you can make the argument that Facebook is sitting on top of all of that, and Facebook is structurally disadvantaged because, they might not have an infrastructure moat. But the infrastructure turned out to be public infrastructure that helped everyone. And you had Facebook and Google kind of rise on top of that. And I don't think that era is all that different. Yeah, these companies are, I think, enormously valuable companies, and they'll continue to do great things. And they're also moving into the app layer, so they understand that there's a lot of value there. But the infrastructure in many ways is public benefit infrastructure, because the moment those capabilities are known, they're getting replicated very quickly, like what we've seen with the DeepSeek moments. And so they need to continue to invest in order to be ahead by 3-6 months. But so far, right, the models are gaining in capability across the board.
Right, and efficiency. We're expecting another DeepSeek model that's supposed to be great on coding in February.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything? Are you anticipating anything? If it is that good, will you serve it in Replit?
Look, we have a great relationship with Anthropic. It's a fantastic company. They're really focused on coding, and they've been making these tremendous jumps with every new coding model. I think that recent sort of coding mania really was started by how big of an improvement Opus is. And so, we're betting that Anthropic will continue to be able to do that. But like I said, we use all the different models out there. And I think that a lot of the Chinese models are really great. I mean, there's a lot of risk and issues coming with that. But when I look at the long term, I see a world in which there are many hundreds of model companies competing, because really the technology at heart does not have built-in moats. And so there's going to be a lot of different players. But for the time being, we're betting on Anthropic.
Okay. We'll wrap up soon. I just wanted to ask you, because we talked about this, one of the recent times we talked about a potential IPO. You haven't had to raise money, you've said a number of times, but when I asked you about an IPO, you said, maybe I'll talk to some bankers. Have you reached out to any bankers since we last talked?
They've been reaching out. They watched your show apparently.
Of course.
It's like, let me take you public.
Doesn't surprise me.
Well, so look, you mentioned the efficiency question, and like I said, Replit has not needed to be that capital intensive, and actually we do have positive gross margins, and so it's really, the question is like, what maximizes our potential to continue to grow? Because I think that the addressable market that we're in is the biggest addressable market there ever existed. It's really the market for software. And not just a market for software, it's like the market for a lot of different things. Like we see, people using Replit to replace the slide deck, to replace all sorts of things people traditionally do in big companies and other small businesses. So, I'm just evaluating whether going public is going to help us do that, or it's going to create a lot of distraction internally. And that's the other thing I've been thinking about with like the stock price going up and down and all of that. What do you think?
That's a concern that's a concern that so many of the founders I talk to, they say I'd rather build in private. And so that's why I was so kind of like astounded by your answer to me last time. Like, why not? We would get a lot of marketing through this. You could even do deals, right? Using your stock price. I personally think that there's a huge amount of benefit in going public, and especially because who do we report to at CNBC? We have our eye on the retail investors. And I think it's really too bad that with so many companies, great companies staying private for longer, they don't get a piece of that, right? It's only for VCs and for investors. And I would, especially that's your audience, right? So
I'm actually more convinced
by you should go public.
More convinced by the moral argument here of like having more people participate in the wealth creation. But look, Replit is a small company still. We're 150 people. I think at the revenue scale we're at and the scale, valuation scale we're at, a SaaS company would be 1,000, 2,000 people. So there's tremendous efficiency in the company, but also we don't have the kind of infrastructure to do that right now. But we're planning to grow a lot this year, and maybe we'll have this conversation like this next year, and maybe I'll have a different answer.
It kind of brings us full circle. It'd be really, really interesting to see a Replit go public because software is getting, killed in the public market, but that's legacy software. If you have AI first software company going public, like what happens? And that would be fun to report on, Amjad. But until that time, I guess you'll have to keep coming on the live stream.
Yeah, as long as you keep building Replit apps, I'll keep coming on.
I might build, you gave me an idea. I might build like a real-time evadometer, like on the screen, which, in real time says how much the interviewee is evading. That
what else you should build? You should build a tool for, private company like ours, for the founder to go in, put in some metrics and different things, and it will give you a recommendation whether going public is a good thing based on real-time public data.
I love that. And then I can sort of get my like mini mission through, right? You should just go public.
Right. And then during the program, you can like show the real-time results as I'm talking.
As certain companies, I won't name who, don't go public for many more times. Amjad, really great discussion as always. Congratulations on the announcement. I'm really excited to make my Market Bling into an app. I'll let you know how that goes. Jasmine, maybe can get her Sewn community published. This seems great for the App Store.
I'm really excited to see what everyone can build, especially with the capabilities on mobile devices. You can hook into location, and you can hook into the meter on the phone where you can see how much you're walking, health data. There's so much to build.
Wow, that's a whole other side we didn't even get into, all the plugins that the phone already has. Amjad, thanks again. Talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Bye.